Hey ho, what is up? Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different for this speed paint. Instead of making it an exclusively Spamton speed paint, we're making it an exclusively Spamton speed paint, but just in Welcome Home. Now I know some of you might be like, what is Welcome Home and why am I seeing it everywhere? And here's the thing, I can't answer the second question, but I could definitely answer the first. Welcome Home is a horror project in which it is a restoration project that is trying to recover and restore relics from the lost 1970s puppet show, Welcome Home, that has strangely disappeared from off the air. But when you look a little deeper, you realize something is off. Letters are askew, Hidden Sense is talking about pain when opening letters, Wally is always watching you, and there's something about home being alive that is unnerving. But we're not focused on the spooky stuff today. Today we're focused on the beautiful artwork and more importantly, trying to copy it. This kind of thing isn't too much of a challenge, I've done it before, but it'll be a little harder this time since the art style is a bit more detailed than mine. Oh, and since this is a Welcome Home video, let's change up the border. Let's get right into it. So, normally I would show the footage of me sketching out Spamton, but unfortunately I kinda forgot to hit the record button because the sketch has been broken up into so many bits, I don't think I would have been able to record it all. So I'll just quickly speedrun my thought process behind redesigning Spamton. So originally I gave Spamton more of a Muppet mouth similar to the rest of the neighbors. However, as I was drawing Spamton, I was thinking about how the mouth would work on the actual puppet, and I couldn't help but think about how he would look like he was flapping his mouth. And I know Frank has a similar head shape, but his mouth was described to be a flap similar to Mr. Beaker. And, well, if I designed him like I originally did, he would have been top heavy on the top of his mouth. So I dropped that design in favor of the more ventriloquist mouth so that he would look more suspicious compared to everybody else. That and also he already has a ventriloquist mouth, so Although, if you are curious, here's what he would have looked like with the Muppet mouth. Another thing, his eyes. I thought about giving him Muppet eyes, again, similar to everybody else, but I think his glasses are so integral to the design to the point where his plush has his glasses sewn on instead of being a removable piece like Rousey. I thought if they were to make a Muppet for the guy, they would have approached it a similar way, so the glasses are sewn on. If you want to see an alternate version of that, here you go. I don't know, it's just something about him with Muppet eyes feels kinda cursed. And finally, his outfit. I was gonna use the original suit, but not only would that be lazy, he would have stood out among the crowd. Like, look at the neighbors, and then look at him. Little bugger sticks out like a little gray cloud in the vast blue sky. But enough about these details, let's get into the actual speed paint. So, designing his actual outfit was a bit of a curveball. I was designing his suit with the Neo suit in mind. No shock there, that's the only other look he has that's slightly interesting. Originally, I was gonna go with one sleeve purple and one sleeve pink, similar to the way I designed my cardigan for my persona. I ended up scrapping it because his Neo design has a left wing with the same color as his body. So one sleeve is purple and the other is maroon, with the elbow patches having the same colors that are on the second part of the wings. I also think it would be funny to imagine the arm of Spamton's suit being ripped off and him trying to find another one in the trash just to add it onto his suit. Another thing that I struggled with for a bit when it came to designing him was the smaller details of the Neo design, like the little hooks on the end of the wings to the triangle that's smack dab in the middle of his body. So there was several ideas that I thought of when it came to adding the triangle onto the suit. I was thinking maybe I can go ahead and make it a collar on his suit and then just not have the other part of the collar show up on the other side so that it can appear like the triangle on his Neo suit. But I didn't want to reuse ideas because I also already used it on his EX design. And I know this is like the second time you've heard that, but I'm honestly not a fan of reusing ideas I use on other designs unless if I'm sure that it's a good enough idea that it could be transferred over across multiple designs. And the reason why I do that is A, just so that I'm not lazy. I don't like being lazy when it comes to designs, especially if I really like making this design. But also B, it kind of forces me to be creative and try to implement other ways to get to that design across. So because of that, the color was a no-go. I had to try to come up with the other way just to make sure that that triangle made it in the design somehow. And I thought of, well, maybe what about a pin that he wears? Or let's try to go ahead and give him a tie. But those ideas weren't really sitting quite as well with me as I wanted it to. But then I remembered, hey, there's an item in Deltarune that's called a Big Shot bow tie. Why don't you go ahead and implement that into the design? So because of that, the bow tie is now in the design. But now with the triangle issue out of the way, now here comes another problem because I really wanted to add those hooks. I didn't add it into the EX design, so what am I gonna do here? And if anything, that part of the design had me racking my brain around because for the life of me, I could not figure out a way to add those hooks into the design. I thought maybe let's go ahead and add them onto the back of the suit, similar to the way that you see those little buttons on the back of tailcoats. But we ran into an issue because I already used a similar idea in the EX design. And trust me, this part of the design actually had me stumped. I was running into dead wall after dead wall. At this point, I was even just considering not using the hooks in the design anymore because, I mean, it's a small detail. Who's gonna actually notice? It's me. I'm gonna be the one who notices. So I kept trying up until I colored the shoe gray, and then I realized, hey, why don't I just color one gray and the other whatever the fuck that color is, because that could be the colors of the hooks. The shoes are the hooks. So now his hooks are there, but instead of them being hooks, they're actually shoes. One thing I want to go ahead and point out before we move on into the speed paint is the fact that I did end up making Spamton's clothes tattered, and the reason for that, it should be an obvious reason. It's because he lives in the garbage. He's a dumpster man. And like, if you don't see anything besides dumpster man, then what is wrong with you? So because of that, I tore up his clothing, I gave his suit patches, I made him a little dirty, and his sleeve is literally ripped off from the suit. Anyways, now I think it's a good time to move on to colors. I'll be honest, when it came time to actually come up with the colors for Spamton, it was a little bit difficult. One of the reasons being, I could not figure out if Clown uses pure blacks or just like a very dark gray to represent black. Like you see in some artworks that they do use pure blacks, but in others, they don't. So I had a hard time when it came to coming up with colors for Spamton because I didn't know if I should use a black or just a very dark gray. So I just opted for a very dark gray so that you can be able to see the details within his hair, as well as be able to differentiate one leg from the other leg. Another issue that I ran into was just trying my best to get Egg White to look right. And you would think I wouldn't have an issue with this because I freaking draw Spamton so many times, but he's not an egg yellow. He's just a very, very desaturated yellow to the point where you can't even tell it's a yellow. Or the color of his pants, which is just a very, very light green. However, I think I figured out that Egg White is just a semi-saturated yellow. Wow, yep, revelation of the century there. Don't forget to bring out the party poppers. But yeah, a lot of it was just me dicking around, eye dropping one color from Spamton, eye dropping another from Wally, and then just trying to find a happy medium between the two. Although one choice that I'm still questioning whether it looks right or if it doesn't is just the color of his eyelids, cause that pink on the eyelid looks very, very bright. In fact, the color is so bright I wouldn't imagine seeing this color within the worlds of Welcome Home. So if I were to go back and fix it, I probably would have just lightened up that color a bit just so that it's not so bright in your face. But alas, I was dumb, I was stupid, I stuck to it, and so now we're moving on from coloring to shading. And trust me, if you think this is the hardest part of the drawing, no, it's not. It's surprisingly one of the easiest parts, at least for me. I have a similar brush that Clown uses, so it makes shading like that a little bit easier. Along with that, I just have general experience using that brush, and it's one of my favorite brushes to actually use. At most, the hardest thing to do while using the brush is just trying to shade on an inward curve. Just shade in 2 different areas of the curve, go ahead and blend the 2, and there you go. It looks better compared to just having a straight line in a curve. Another thing that makes the shading fun is just the colors of the shade themselves. That being, you can't really use the multiply blend mode, so you kind of have to rely on the colors of the shadow to be, a shadow. And so there are 2 different ways to achieve that. One way of doing it is just taking the original color and then just kind of darkening it a bit so that way you could tell that's a shadow right there. Another way of doing it is just taking the analogous color of the original color and then just using that as a shade. And you would think that wouldn't work, but you'd be surprised. Like a blue can be really effective on a shade of a green, or using an orange on a yellow. And trust me, using a dirty yellow to shade a yellow would not work. It looks disgusting and gross, and if you do that, you are a heathen! But that point aside, I want to go ahead and shift our attention from the shading to his character within Welcome Home, because I'm not going to be doing this anywhere else, and I think it would be nice to explore that even just a little bit. So far, here's the rundown. He would have a character that's more along the lines of Robbie Run, I guess? I don't know, that's the character that keeps coming to mind for me. Like, he does stuff with malicious intent, but at most is just selling someone something more than it's worth. He doesn't really try to hurt anyone with the items he sells, but he does end up inadvertently causing some of the main conflict for some of the episodes. And I thought because of that he would have some conflict with Howdy Pillar, because they both sell stuff. However, I had to reread Howdy's bio and realized he wouldn't have conflict with Spamton because of what he's selling. Mainly because Howdy likes little random trinkets and accepts it as a form of payment. So in actuality, he wouldn't even dislike Spamton because of this aspect. I mean, Frank might, but that's just because he's being Frank. Now, I know some of you might also ask, hey, does Spamton live in a dumpster? And if you were to ask me that before I started this speed paint, I would have said yes. But I had to give it a thought. Really use my brain. And no, he doesn't. I mean, yes, it would make sense for him to live in a dumpster, but if he's living at home with some of the most friendly neighbors, I don't think they would actually let him live in a dumpster. I think they would have tried to pitch in and get a fellow neighbor a brand new home. So, no, I think he would live in a trailer. I don't know why, I just thought he would. But also, there could be a little gag where Spamton says, I'll be in my trailer! And it's never making it to the trailer. It's also a reference to what happens when you fill up your pockets. And so because I drew Spamton, that must mean I also have to draw his trailer, right? But I was already growing tired of this. Not only did I make a fully detailed drawing of a what if, but on top of that I also recorded a bunch of speed paints in between that, and I didn't want to go ahead and make another fully detailed drawing of essentially what is a small picture of his house. So instead, have a little messy mock-up of what would have been his trailer. So, Lord knows I'm not doing all of that all over again just for a trailer that's essentially just going to be in the corner of a page. Another thing that could be fun is just kind of the way that he talks in general. And what I mean by that, I mean he'll sound like he's talking through like an old radio. You know, kind of like the clip earlier where he was talking about going back to his trailer. And my reasoning for that is just that I think he'll sound a bit more shadier compared to everybody else. You know, he already sticks out like a sore thumb, looking all dirty and whatnot, being a ventriloquist, so I think it will add on to that factor by just going ahead and making him sound a bit more off. Because if he's not going to go ahead and talk in broken internet speech to give off that off feeling, then he's going to have to make it up in some other way. And I think him sounding like a broken, worn down radio is a good way to make up for that. Because remember, this was a puppet show made back in the 1970s. I don't think they're gonna have the internet compared to the way that we do now. Even then, the puppet show was created 6 years before the first spam mail was made, so I don't think he's gonna have that broken speech that he does in Deltarune. But then that raises the question of would he even be in there since he's a representation of spam mail, and it's just like we don't care. We do not care. There's only so much we can start asking before we're just like, hey, let's just not think about it. So we're just gonna go ahead and have fun. Let's not think too hard about it. Point is, he's gonna sound like an old-timey radio because the internet didn't exist back then. He's a scammer, and the radio is going to make him sound suspicious, so there we go. And I think this would be a good way to end the speed paint, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. And hey, whoa, we're done with the speed paint. I actually had a lot of fun when it came to this piece, especially the line art. The line art was super fun to do. And if you want to see this piece on like a mock-up version of the website, here you go. Ta-da! And I mean, you can't have the piece without like the mock-up version of the website. How silly do you think I am? In the end, it took me around 4 hours and 25 minutes, excluding the sketching and the other stuff. If you want to check out my other stuff, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, or TikTok. Anywhere is fine. Oh, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the flip side.